Chapter 71. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Mental Demon Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios Mental Demon. Miao Qingyang's heart sank when he realized what was going on. His main cultivation was the mental demon fist, which could attract the mental demon to attack the enemy and even control cultivators whose cultivation levels were inferior to his. However, the mental demon fist had a weakness. Every once in a while, the cultivator would be disturbed by the mental demon. Once his state of mind wavered, his inner demon would arise. In the past, Miao Qingyang's Tao heart was firm and his acute determination was unparalleled. Otherwise, he would not have dared to choose the mental demon fist. This was also the reason why he had taken the initiative to enter the dream-sensing forest's illusion. Firstly, he wanted to see his younger brother for the last time. Secondly, he wanted to break through the illusion and pass through the dream-sensing forest faster. Who knew that the mental demon would attack at this time? He took a deep breath and punched the illusion in the head. Blood splattered as the corpse shattered. The surrounding scenery shattered instantly, revealing its true appearance. Miao Qingyang looked at the vines that were pouncing on him with a ferocious expression. In his vision, as these vines pounced over, they quickly transformed into Jingjingshan and Pei Ling. Moreover, there were more and more of them. In the blink of an eye, countless Jingjingshan and Pei Ling had surrounded him. Kill! A voice suddenly sounded in Miao Qingyang's mind. Then it became louder and louder as it reverberated in his ears. He forcefully interrupted his thoughts, leaving only one thought in his mind. It was to destroy everything in front of him. Miao Qingyang's eyes were red with anger. He felt that he had an irreconcilable hatred for these figures in front of him. Even the waters of 3 rivers and 5 lakes could not extinguish it. In an instant, infinite killing intent rose in his chest. Bang! Miao Qingyang suddenly threw a punch, which created a violent gust of wind. Vines as thick as dozens of arms were broken and sent flying. Blood gurgled from the vines, and the smell of blood filled the air. The dream-sensing forest was injured and became increasingly ferocious. The broken vines quickly sprouted and joined the siege again in an instant. Between the blood-colored vines, pure white flowers bloomed, one after another. After the flower buds, countless sharp thorns appeared. As the vines stood upright, they shot towards Miao Qingyang. For a moment, the spikes rained down crazily. Miao Qingyang let out a long cry, and his fists glowed with a faint black light. At the same time, several witches appeared out of thin air. They glanced coquettishly at him as they danced barefoot. All the vines that shot at him were blocked by the witches. Bang 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 bang. Miao Qingyang's face was distorted as he threw dozens of punches in one go. The powerful fist force immediately shattered a vine the size of a bucket. In his vision, what he killed with this punch was an illusion of Jingjingshan. Kill, 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 kill. Miao Qingyang shouted crazily as he thrusted his fists. The witches danced in a frenzy, shattering all the surrounding vines and flowers. The broken vines fell to the ground and quickly grew into new vines. Miao Qingyang was powerful and killed the vines speedily. The speed at which the vines regenerated could not keep up with the speed of his punches. There were fewer and fewer vines, and the surroundings were now filled with witch phantoms. They were charming and their breaths were fragrant like orchids as they surrounded Miao Qingyang. For a moment, the murmur of the mental demon fist echoed throughout the entire dream-sensing forest. At this moment, a blooming flower in the forest suddenly withered, and then it bore a huge fruit. The fruit fell to the ground and gradually turned into a youth. It was Miao Qingyang. Boom! Before Miao Qingyang could get close, Miao Qingyang punched him into pieces. Kill another one. Jingjingshan. Pei Ling. I'll kill all of you immediately. Boom boom boom. After killing for an unknown period of time, Miao Qingyang finally regained consciousness. He turned around and realized that he had already fought his way out of the dream-sensing forest. Mental demon. Miao Qingyang immediately realized the seriousness of the problem and could not help but turn ashen. When he first heard about his younger brother's death, he thought that with his willpower, even if he was angry and hurt, his Tao heart would not waver. But after relying on each other for so many years, his brotherly love for Chengyan was far deeper than he had thought. Unknowingly, his Tao heart was already covered in dust, and he was taken advantage of by his inner demon, causing a crack to appear. If not for the dream-sensing forest, Miao Qingyang would not have realized that his inner demon had long taken hold of him and was quietly brewing. He turned around and looked at the blood-colored waterfall behind him. The anger in his eyes gradually disappeared, revealing grief that was no longer concealed. Chengyan. Don't worry, I'm still your older brother. Nothing has changed. Whoever hurts you, no matter their status, cultivation, or background, must pay the price. As Miao Qingyang spoke, he did not stay any longer. His eyes were bloodshot as he continued to chase after the bloody footprints in his vision. When he realized that Ouyang Xianqing and the others were heading to the In Yang basin, he could not help but sneer. His entire body turned into a dream-like phantom. The path that Ouyang Xianqing and the others had to pass through carefully was no different from the main path for Miao Qingyang. Even when he passed through the narrow ridge with cliffs on both sides, he did not pause. In a flash, Miao Qingyang passed through this dangerous place. Then he stopped in his tracks. This was because the bloody footprints that were originally clear in his vision became messy and then disappeared on the opposite side. Have I been discovered? Miao Qingyang frowned. He did not care about Shui Ying's life or death, but he did not want to miss this opportunity to kill Pei Ling with his own hands. Therefore, after confirming that he could no longer track him through the bloody footprints, he immediately jumped onto a nearby rock and looked around to determine the whereabouts of Ouyang Xianqing and the others. Although the paths in the Gu Abyss were varied, the more important places, such as the dream-sensing forest and the In Yang basin, would not change much. The place where the cold marrow fire was born would also be near a similar terrain. Among them, Ouyang Xianqing's cultivation level is the highest, but she's only at the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. Soon, Miao Qingyang had a plan. In the southeast, anyone below the core formation realm will definitely die if they approach the tomb of Myriad Gu. I can eliminate them directly. In the south, although the danger level is slightly lower, a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator can barely protect himself. After eliminating similar danger spots, he finally deduced 3 possible locations. The secluded mushroom cave in the southwest, the skeletal crane swamp, and the insect mountain in the east. It takes a long time to absorb the cold marrow fire into my body. With my escape technique, I can check out the 3 locations, one by one. Pei Ling, you little bastard, you can't escape. With that, his figure flashed as he sped towards Insect Mountain. At this moment, in a corner of the skeletal crane swamp, large and small skeletal cranes lay dead on the ground. The surroundings were silent. Ouyang Xianqing stepped on a tall crane skeleton. She looked down from above and supervised Shui Ying's formation with a cold expression. Shui Ying's face was pale, and he looked resentful. However, the faintly discernible bone flower behind him forced him to grit his teeth and make hand seals with the array flags that he had refined in advance. The array flags sank into the swamp, emitting an extremely faint sound. They surrounded a cluster of distant light blue flames. Seeing that the trapping array was about to be completed, Ouyang Xianqing turned to Pei Ling and said, "After the array is activated, the cold marrow fire can't escape. I'll enter and capture it before handing it to you to refine. The process of absorbing the fire into your body is very painful, but you have to endure it. Otherwise, all of Branch Master's efforts will be in vain, understand?" Pei Ling accepted the advice respectfully. In the end, he remembered something and asked softly, "Oh right, senior sister, how do I absorb this fire into my body?" Should I swallow it directly? Ouyang Xianqing and Fang Ji were stunned. Even Shuang, who was unwilling to set up the array in the distance, trembled. You don't even know the fire-receiving art. Fang Ji was the first to shout. He was already very dissatisfied with Pei Ling, and at this moment, he exploded. Senior sister, what kind of joke is this? If he doesn't know the fire-receiving art, why did we bring him here? Chapter 72. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fire Receiving Art Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Fire Receiving Art. What is this thing? Pei Ling was stunned for a moment before he quickly realized that this must be a special method for absorbing immortal fire. The problem was that when he showed Jing Jingshan his talent in alchemy back then, he had relied solely on the system's one-click management. This senior brother Zheng had most likely seen him controlling the immortal fire during the process of refining pills and thought that he must have mastered the fire-receiving art, so he did not even mention it to him. This is going to be troublesome. Ouyang Xianqing frowned slightly. This was a mission arranged by the Double Mulberry faction leader. She thought that she only needed to be a loyal fighter, and the most troublesome situation she could encounter would be pursuing a narrow gain while neglecting a greater danger. She did not expect Pei Ling to pose such a big problem even before the Clear River faction arrived. I'll teach you the fire-receiving art now. Learn it quickly. After thinking quickly, Ouyang Xianqing took a deep breath and said in a low voice. Pei Ling's cultivation level was low to begin with. Without the fire-receiving art, it was impossible to refine the cold marrow fire. Senior sister. Hearing this, the corners of Shui Ying's mouth twitched as he revealed a mocking expression. Fang Ji hurriedly advised, although the fire-receiving art is not some profound spell, how can a mere Qi refinement realm cultivator learn it without taking at least half a month? Moreover, the cold marrow fire is an 8th grade immortal fire, and it's one of the best among 8th grade immortal fires. With his cultivation level, even if he manages to learn it, if he's not familiar with it, he will suffer a backlash if he makes a mistake. At that time, not only will we waste the cold marrow fire, but we won't be able to complete the branch master's mission. We'll lose both our lives and our wealth. He could not help thinking of retreating. Why don't we bring him back first and report to the branch master? Then. No. However, Ouyang Xianqing rejected him immediately and said firmly, so be it. The branch master did not specify our time for this mission. The Gu Abyss is vast, and outsiders might not have a chance if they don't know the location of the cold marrow fire. Why should we turn around and let the branch master's previous efforts go down the drain? As for junior brother Pei's cultivation level, when he starts refining the cold marrow fire, you will protect him. He's only a Qi refinement realm cultivator. With your foundation establishment realm cultivation, treating him shouldn't be difficult. Fang Ji was anxious. This was indeed not difficult for him. In fact, the reason why Jing Jingshan asked the three of them to be in charge of this mission was that he wanted Ouyang Xianqing, who had the highest cultivation level, to lead the team and ensure their safety during the journey. Shuang was in charge of setting up the array to prevent the immortal fire from escaping and to support everyone. As for Fang Ji, who cultivated both medicine and poison, he was mainly there to protect junior brother Pei during the process of refining the immortal fire. However, Double Mulberry faction had been on a decline in recent years, and their resources were decreasing year by year. This time, Jing Jingshan suddenly risked everything to obtain the mission of the cold marrow fire, but he did not give it to Fang Ji and the other junior brothers and sisters who he usually relied on. Instead, it benefited an outer sect disciple who had just entered the sect. How could Fang Ji and the others accept this? If not for the branch master's prestige, Fang Ji and Shuang would not even want to participate in this mission. Therefore, after leaving Kulan courtyard, even with Ouyang Xianqing holding the fort, Fang Ji gave Pei Ling a hard time. At this moment, seeing that Pei Ling did not even know the fire-receiving art, he thought that it presented an excuse to force Pei Ling to return and Ouyang Xianqing to take a step back. He would suggest that he or Xueying absorb the cold marrow fire. Unexpectedly, Ouyang Xianqing would take the risk of staying here for half a month for Pei Ling. Fang Ji's heart was filled with jealousy and hatred towards Pei Ling. His face was contorted before he forced a smile and said, "Senior sister, you think too highly of me. Junior brother Pei's cultivation level is too low, and I'm not very confident." "Just do your best," Ouyang Xianqing said coldly as she turned to Pei Ling. "All right, don't waste time. I'll recite the chant for the fire-receiving art to you now. If you have anything you don't understand, ask me immediately. It's just that I didn't spend much effort on alchemy back then, so I might not be able to explain it to you. What I can't explain, you'll have to comprehend yourself." Without waiting for Pei Ling to say anything, she opened her mouth and recited a chant that was about a few hundred words long. Pei Ling only understood the general meaning of the first 2 sentences. As for the latter part, he did not even know the words, just like the blood spiraling escape technique from before. Fortunately, he had the system. Ouyang Xianqing had just begun to recite when the system went online. Ding dong. Detected that the outside world is imparting spells. Recording. As soon as this senior sister finished memorizing the incantation, the system prompted, "The spell has been recorded. Host, please name it." "It's called the fire receiving art." It was rare for Pei Ling to find the system so pleasing. His hand trembled and he almost gave it a 5-star rating. Then he reacted quickly, clicking on the 4-star rating at the critical moment. Just as he was thinking about how to tell Ouyang Xianqing that he had learned the fire-receiving art, tremors could be felt in the surroundings with the cold marrow fire at the center. The trapping array was finally set up. Ouyang Xianqing extended her hand to Xueying. "Give me the core array flag." Xueying did not dare to say anything. He glanced at Pei Ling resentfully and handed a small black flag to Ouyang Xianqing. He swallowed his anger and said, "Senior sister, I really didn't. We'll discuss this matter in front of the branch master when we return to the Kalan courtyard," Ouyang Xianqing said coldly. "All right, hand over your intrinsic array disk to me." "Senior sister." Xueying's pupils constricted as he blurted out, "You're actually so wary of me because of this kid's words." Fang Ji, who was at the side, wanted to say something but hesitated. Although he did not dare to say anything when he saw Ouyang Xianqing's cold expression, he looked at Pei Ling with an increasingly unfriendly gaze. Ouyang Xianqing could not be bothered to waste her breath. "You dare to disobey me?" As he spoke, a bone flower slowly appeared behind Xueying. Thereupon countless white bone chains that pierced through his body wiggled, causing his face to turn pale. "Yes." Xueying took a deep breath and held back his anger. He took out his intrinsic array disk and held it with both hands. He lowered his head and said, "How would I dare to disobey senior sister's orders?" Ouyang Xianqing took the array disk and checked it carefully. After confirming that there was no problem, she waved her hand. Before Xueying could react, the originally translucent bone flower behind him suddenly changed and expanded. Then a huge mouth filled with sharp teeth appeared and swallowed him. Fang Ji was shocked. "Senior sister, senior brother Xue has already." Ouyang Xianqing ignored him and formed hand seals with both hands. After the bone flower swallowed Xueying, it transformed quickly. In just 2 breaths, it turned into a white bone armor that wrapped around Xueying tightly. He could not even move his fingertips, and only his nose was exposed. "Senior sister, you." Xueying was shocked at first, then furious. "We've known each other for many years, you." Before he could finish, a few chains suddenly appeared from the white bone armor. With a clanging sound, they completely blocked his tongue. "This should be fine," Ouyang Xianqing thought to herself. Then she kicked him out of the array and instructed Fang Ji to protect Pei Ling in case anything happened. She then strode towards the immortal fire. Chapter 73. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Cold Marrow Fire Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. From afar, the cold marrow fire looked like a light blue flame. When he got closer, he realized that it was actually as blue as the blue sky. It was clearly condensed from the cold air underground, but it had the brightness of the sky. It was a stark contrast to the dark and lonely environment of the skeletal crane swamp. Sensing the approach of the cultivators, the originally quiet immortal fire suddenly jumped and expanded to a height of dozens of feet. At the same time, the chill from the skeletal crane swamp in the entire trapping array was instantly swept away, and replaced by a scorching heat that seemed to have come from an incinerator. However, in this heat, there was a bone-chilling coldness that rose from the bottom of the heart, making them shiver involuntarily. Pei Ling was feeling extremely uncomfortable when Ouyang Xianqing snorted coldly. She did not dodge or give way as her slender and pale palm reached towards the immortal fire. The immortal fire flourished and expanded again, instantly engulfing Ouyang Xianqing. Pei Ling and Fang Ji were shocked. Just as Fang Ji was about to step forward to help, talismans emerged from the immortal fire. Oblivious to the burning heat, they stuck to the top of the fire. With every talisman that appeared, the fire became more subdued. As if sensing the threat, the immortal fire suddenly spat out the unharmed Ouyang Xianqing and fled into the depths of the swamp at an extremely fast speed. However, as soon as the immortal fire moved, Ouyang Xianqing immediately shook the array flag. In the next moment, the immortal fire was blocked by the array. Taking advantage of this opportunity, she pointed with her finger and pasted another talisman on the immortal fire. The fire then changed direction and soared into the sky. However, this cold marrow fire had yet to develop intelligence after all. It relied on its instincts to deal with nature and was inflexible. As soon as it levitated, Ouyang Xianqing used the same method to block it. Clack! Another talisman was added to its body, and the fire was subdued again. The immortal fire could only leap around in the trapping array. Ouyang Xianqing followed it like a shadow. The escape technique she had learned was like a light green smoke that adhered to the immortal fire and slapped on the talismans continuously. Soon, after a series of twists and turns, the immortal fire had shrunk to the size of a palm. Talismans wrapped densely around it. Ouyang Xianqing stood still and reached out to grab the immortal fire sealed by the talismans. However, there was no joy on her face. Instead, she frowned. The cold marrow fire could struggle for so long. Clearly, it had been born in the Gu abyss for longer than expected. In terms of quality, it was naturally better. However, Pei Ling was only at the 5th level of qi refinement. A newly born cold marrow fire would be daunting for him, let alone the current immortal fire. In order to prevent Pei Ling from turning into ashes the moment he came into contact with this cluster of immortal fire, she had to first remove the acquired cold energy that the cold marrow fire had absorbed in the skeletal crane swamp these past few days, leaving only the original source of fire. After confirming that Xueying and Fang Ji were not making any moves and that the trapping array was intact, Ouyang Xianqing took out a pill and swallowed it. She returned to her normal state before entering the black coffin. Slowly and with great difficulty, she pulled out a snow-white bone dagger. It was unknown what kind of creature's bones this dagger was made of. It was pure white and flawless, and only the hilt was engraved with bright red spider lily patterns. The patterns seemed to be alive. As soon as they appeared, they jumped up and wrapped around Ouyang Xianqing's palm. Immediately, they grew rapidly from her palm to her forearm until the right side of Ouyang Xianqing's face was covered in complicated patterns of red spider lilies. Only then did they calm down slowly. In just a short moment, Ouyang Xianqing's forehead was covered in sweat. She plunged the dagger through a talisman to seal the immortal fire. The moment the talisman was torn, it burned automatically. The cold marrow fire sealed inside did not return to its source. Instead, it floated along the blade of the dagger for a while and was quickly absorbed by the red spider lily patterns. Next, Ouyang Xianqing plunged the dagger into all the talismans, one by one. The red spider lily patterns on the dagger became more and more beautiful, gradually turning from bright red to hazel. After a while, all the talismans burned out, leaving the remnant of the cold marrow fire that was only the size of a fingernail. Ouyang Xianqing finally heaved a sigh of relief, but she did not dare to relax. She cast 2 spells to seal the dying immortal fire. Then she turned around and wiped the sweat off her forehead. She said in a low voice, "Let's go. Let's go somewhere else." Feng Ji looked at the immortal fire in her hand with envy and jealousy. When he heard this, he was stunned. Go somewhere else. Junior brother Pei needs time to cultivate the fire-receiving art. It might not be safe to stay here. Ouyang Xianqing nodded slightly and said, "I remember that there's a piece of terrain in the secluded mushroom cave. If it hasn't changed, it's a good hideout." There was a reason why she insisted on not retreating even though she knew that the Clear River faction was hostile to her. The Gu Abyss was vast and unpredictable. It would be fine if they met with obstacles before they obtained the cold marrow fire. Now that they had the cold marrow fire, they should find a random place to hide for half a month. Unless there was a traitor or they were really unlucky, there would be no problem at all. But it might not be safe on the way to the secluded mushroom cave this time. The dissatisfaction in Feng Ji's heart had reached its limit. He could not hold it in any more and objected, "Senior sister has a prejudice against senior brother Shui. Between the two of us, we have to keep a watchful eye on senior brother Shui. With Pei Ling's cultivation level, if any poisonous mushroom slave were to self-destruct beside him, I'm afraid things would be beyond redemption. Besides, hiding here for half a month is already quite stressful for us, let alone protecting Pei Ling. I know that you always keep your promises. You promised the branch master that you would do your best to fulfill the mission. But senior sister, please calm down and think about it carefully. It's impossible now. Either let this kid try to absorb the fire into his body on the spot, or give up this opportunity." Ouyang Xianqing's expression turned cold. "At the critical moment, I will open the coffin to face the enemy. Are you relieved now?" The black coffin on her back was clearly powerful. When Feng Ji heard this, he could not help but gasp and feel even more jealous. What right does this kid have? Not only did the branch master fight for the cold marrow fire mission for him, but even senior sister is paying such a high price for him. Pei Ling's heart skipped a beat. Why can't Ouyang Xianqing use the black coffin casually? Then in the dream-sensing forest. He stopped pondering and hurriedly said, "Senior sister, senior brother, please stop fighting. I'm willing to try absorbing the fire into my body now." After all, Pei Ling had a huge debt to repay. How could he stay here for half a month? Since he did not intend to hide his abilities and was already prepared to disguise himself as a genius, why waste time? He might as well let the system take over on the spot and refine this cold marrow fire. Shut up. Ouyang Xianqing frowned when she heard this and reprimanded softly, "Do you know that the cold marrow fire has all kinds of benefits? Why are you observing the rules in this fight among the inner sect? You only have one chance to absorb the fire into your body. If you don't succeed, you'll die. It's not a choice based on cultivation and willpower. Even if you covet the marrow cleansing effect, you can only flinch." She felt that Pei Ling was simply fooling around. How long had it been since she taught him the fire-receiving art? If he said that he basically understood this fire-receiving art, he would be considered outstanding in terms of comprehension. He actually wanted to give it a try. In Ouyang Xianqing's opinion, this junior brother Pei was indeed a newcomer to the sect who knew nothing. "Senior sister, why are you so arbitrary?" Reacting to Ouyang Xianqing's anger, Feng Ji's eyes flashed as he said, "Junior brother Pei has only entered the sect for a few days, but he's already so highly regarded by the branch master. Perhaps it's because he's talented. Otherwise, why would the branch master, who has always been wise, pay such a huge price to side with outsiders? In order to coax Pei Ling, this was the first time Fang Ji called Pei Ling junior brother. He said amiably, "Junior brother, don't you think so? It can't be that branch master is selfish, right? Branch master has never done such a thing. If this drags on, I could have spent the time refining a few batches of superior-grade bone tempering pills." Seeing that Ouyang Xianqing still had something to say, Pei Ling simply said in his mind, "System, I want to cultivate. I choose the fire receiving art, temporary cultivation, smart duration, and one-click management. Ding dong. The smart cultivation system is at your service." Ding dong, beginning to cultivate the fire receiving art. Ding dong, immortal fire missing. Ding dong. The system will give you a natural immortal fire for free. The next moment, the system controlled Pei Ling to walk towards Ouyang Xianqing expressionlessly and snatch the cold marrow fire from her hand. Ding dong. Natural immortal fire gift complete. Cultivation continues. Chapter 74. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A genius. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios, be careful. Ouyang Xianqing reminded him hastily. Although the cold marrow fire's essence was greatly injured and was extremely docile in the hands of a mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator like her, it was not to be underestimated by a Qi refinement realm cultivator. As expected, as soon as Pei Ling obtained the cold marrow fire, even with the suppression of the spell, the fire source immediately went berserk. However, at this moment, Pei Ling opened his mouth and sucked in a mouthful of air. The flames that had just soared suddenly split into 7 streams that entered his 7 orifices like snakes. Ouyang Xianqing immediately fell silent with a serious expression. This was the first step of the fire receiving art, and it was also the step with the highest failure rate. The innate fire source was nurtured by heaven and earth. Even if it had yet to develop intelligence, its instincts would resist being used by cultivators. And with the physical body of a Qi refinement realm cultivator, it was impossible to resist the power of an 8th-grade immortal fire. Therefore, if he was not careful with the fire receiving art, it would cause a backlash from the fire source. At best, he would be severely injured and on the verge of death. At worst, he would be reduced to ashes on the spot. Therefore, ordinary cultivators would start with mortal flames. After all, mortal flames were no longer a threat to cultivators who had stepped onto the path of Tao. With repeated practice and proficiency in the fire receiving art, one could ensure that things would not go wrong before receiving the true immortal fire. For someone like Pei Ling, who had only cultivated the fire receiving art a moment ago and had already absorbed the immortal fire. One of the best among the 8th grade immortal fires, Ouyang Xianqing had never seen and heard anything like it. She subconsciously tightened her grip on the bone dagger in her hand and instructed Fang Ji quickly, "Quick. Prepare to save him." "Don't worry, senior sister," Fang Ji said. Maybe he's confident. However, he was very excited. He could not wait for Pei Ling to burn himself to death on the spot. After all, if he failed to absorb the fire into his body at this step, the cold marrow fire would still be intact. Now that the trapping array was still around, this cluster of immortal fire had nowhere to escape. Xuang was not trusted by Ouyang Xianqing, and Ouyang Xianqing was in a special situation and did not need the cold marrow fire. Who else could have obtained the opportunity to refine the immortal fire? At the thought of this, he couldn't care less about saving Pei Ling. If not for Ouyang Xianqing, he would have done something to make Pei Ling die faster. However, as soon as the 7 fire snakes entered Pei Ling's body, the system skillfully circulated the fire receiving art, causing them to proliferate. In an instant, every fire snake branched into fire threads that were difficult to see with the naked eye and fused into the circulation of his spiritual power. At the same time, a faint azure light appeared around Pei Ling's body and gradually seeped down from his head. The nervous Ouyang Xianqing could not help but widen her eyes. This junior brother Pei's fire control technique is so brilliant. It does not seem like he has just learned the fire receiving art. He's clearly very familiar with it. Considering the time it took him to master this spell, how shocking is his comprehension ability and talent. It seems that Fang Ji is right. The double mulberry faction is in a difficult situation now, but the branch master wants to nurture Pei Ling at all costs. Indeed, there's a reason. Genius. A peerless genius. Just as Ouyang Xianqing was feeling overjoyed, Fang Ji's face turned ashen. He had thought that he had a chance to take advantage of the situation, but who knew that Pei Ling was actually so talented? Damn it! Fang Ji clenched his fists, unable to hide the malice and jealousy in his eyes. He thought quickly, looks like I have gained nothing this time. Not only that, how many days has it been since Pei Ling entered the sect? He's still in the outer sect and is at the Qi refinement realm, but the branch master already treats him so well. Next, he has the cold marrow fire, which is valuable. The branch master will definitely nurture him more. In that case, won't Pei Ling, an outer sect disciple, be allocated a similar amount of resources as double mulberry's inner sect disciples? And when he joins the inner sect, it goes without saying that he will be entitled to all kinds of benefits, while others will get only scraps. At this moment, Fang Ji was feeling a little regretful. If he had known that Pei Ling was so talented and that Jing Jingshan thought highly of him, his attitude would not have been so hostile. However, along the way, he had already offended Pei Ling many times. Even if Pei Ling did not say anything, he wondered if this kid held a grudge against him. At the thought of this, Fang Ji's face turned green and red. He could not calm down for a long time. In fact, Fang Ji was not the only one who regretted it. Xueying, who was outside the trapping array, was also extremely vexed when he saw the blue halo permeating Pei Ling's body at a steady pace. He was an old man from the double mulberry faction. It was impossible for him to have no feelings for his faction. The problem was that after Jing Jingshan took office, due to the personal grudge between this branch master and Miao Qingyang, the Clear River faction, which had always minded its own business, was constantly targeted. As a result, the already weak double mulberry faction became worse and worse, and their resources decreased day by day. Jing Jingshan had taken the risk of offending the middle five factions to obtain the cold marrow fire. The inner sect of the double mulberry faction did not approve of it to begin with. If not for Jing Jingshan's arbitrary decision and core disciple Li's backing, this decision would not have been passed at all. Xueying saw what happened and was extremely disappointed in the branch master. He was also extremely pessimistic about the future of the double mulberry faction. In his opinion, this faction would collapse sooner or later. He did not want to stake his fortune with it. However, he did not expect Pei Ling from the outer sect to have such astonishing talent. Is branch master pinning his hopes on this kid? As Xueying came to the realization, his resolute heart wavered slightly. If I had known, I would have believed branch master this time. However, feeling the coldness from the bone flower, he quickly made his choice. He thought to himself, the branch master is just struggling on the brink of death. Not to mention that even if this Pei Ling is outstanding, he will still need time to grow. And it's unknown if the double mulberry faction can survive until then. Instead of counting on this kid, it's better to please the reliable core disciple Li. Moreover, branch master Miao is very determined to avenge his younger brother. No matter how talented this kid is, he is destined to die this time. My choice is not wrong. He looked at Ouyang Xianqing resentfully. Lowly servant, when branch master Miao comes later, you'll suffer. Pei Ling did not know what the three people were thinking. He was a little bored at the moment. After all, the system was in charge of receiving fire into his body. He only needed to wait. After this mission is completed, I won't be fooled no matter what senior brother Zheng says next. Pei Ling thought about what he should do next. I still have to refine pills. I'll try to pay the fine as soon as possible. When the time comes, I'll go to the magic pavilion to see if there are any suitable cultivation techniques and spells. Before he could finish his thought, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his limbs. It was as if thousands of steel knives were cutting his meridians, bones, and tendons at the same time. F***ck. Pei Ling's mind went blank from the pain. He even forgot what he was thinking. If he could still control his body, he would have wailed and rolled on the ground. However, the system was in charge of his body now. So all outsiders could only see was that after the cold marrow fire covered Pei Ling's entire body, causing him to emit an azure halo, the most painful and torturous step had begun, but he remained expressionless and calm. He did not even blink. Chapter 75. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Senior sister will remember you. Translator. Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios. Pain, 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 pain. Pei Ling did not have any thoughts at this moment. His whole consciousness was swept by the pain from the inside out. Ouyang Xianqing had warned him that the process of absorbing fire into his body was very painful. However, Pei Ling did not take it seriously. After all, he had forcefully cultivated the bone forging art to the second level of qi refinement without the help of the bone tempering pill or any resources. Just imagine the difficulty of shattering all the bones in his body and having to divert his attention to circulate his cultivation technique. Therefore, Pei Ling felt that no matter how painful it was to absorb fire into his body, it would not be as painful as cultivating the bone forging art back then. He was a cultivator who had survived the bone forging art. However, at this moment, he realized that compared to absorbing fire into his body, cultivating the bone forging art was simply a form of enjoyment. At least, although the cultivation of the bone forging art was extremely painful at first, it was only the pain in his body. Towards the end, he was even a little used to it. However, at this moment, the pain seemed to come from the depths of his soul and from his bones. Pei Ling even thought of the spirit integration technique that the lecturer from Weapon Forging Peak had explained. He began to understand the demon beasts that had been refined into artifact spirits. If they suffered the pain he was feeling at the moment, it was only natural for them to submit. It would be strange if they did not. Calm down. I have to think of something to distract myself. Pei Ling thought with difficulty, this bone-deep pain is indescribable. Although he would most likely not die under the system's control, if this continued, he might go crazy. Think of something. Quick. Think of what? Fairy Lee. Yes. I miss Fairy Lee. So what happened between me and Fairy Lee? At that time, I forcefully pushed her. The exact process was. Hence, Pei Ling began to recall the details of that day. The indescribable pain in his body seemed to have become much lighter. The system continued to absorb the cold marrow fire in front of it. As time passed, bit by bit, under the nervous gazes of Ouyang Xianqing and the other two, Pei Ling's expression remained calm. Even his muscles did not tense up at all. Surprisingly, he was absorbing the immortal fire at an extremely relaxed and calm pace. The entire process was smooth and calm, and even had a kind of elegance that only came from extreme proficiency. This caused another uproar in the hearts of the three inner sect disciples who had just marveled at his talent. What kind of temperament and will is this? Although Ouyang Xianqing had been very protective of Pei Ling along the way and did not hesitate to punish her teammate, Xuang, it was only because she kept her promises and followed the branch master's orders. She did not have a good impression of Pei Ling. However, at this moment, her starry eyes were fixed on Pei Ling's calm expression. She could not help but be moved as she thought to herself, although I have never personally absorbed the immortal fire, back then, Branch Master had also used the immortal fire to temper his body. At that time, I was protecting him. Branch Master was already at the Foundation establishment realm and was dignified, but he was in so much pain that he rolled on the ground with tears flowing down his face. It said that the Branch Master's situation was considered relatively decent. Some people even lost control of their bladder in public because of the pain during this process. They were covered in yellow and white stuff, having totally lost control. This Pei Ling is actually so calm. Even if he's actually in a lot of pain and is only pretending to be calm for the sake of his youth's dignity, to be able to hide it to this extent shows how tough his will is. Excellent talent, rock-like willpower. And so young. No wonder the Branch Master is so fond of him. As long as this junior brother doesn't die midway, he will definitely have a place in the inner sect in the future. If she were Jingshan, she would definitely think of ways to allocate resources and nurture such a talent. At the thought of this, Ouyang Xianqing looked intently at Pei Ling, this outer sect junior brother. In contrast to her relief, Fang Ji and Shuang were so regretful that they wanted to vomit blood. How is this possible? Fang Ji roared in his heart. How can there be such a person in the world? It's fine if it's just talent. There are many core disciples in the inner sect and geniuses from other sections. There are many with outstanding talents, but this perseverance. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. If this kid is a legitimate son of a prestigious family who has been nurtured since he was young, it's only natural. He's clearly a disciple of a small branch family in Deer Spring City. How can he have such talent? As a disciple, his senior brother has only been in the sect for a few years and is simply trash. He should be the same as that brother. How could he be valued by the Branch Master in such a short time after entering the sect? And how could he refine the cold marrow fire so easily? This kid must have cultivated the fire-receiving art long ago. That's right. He must have practiced it countless times in private. Now, he's just using us to become famous in one battle and make himself a name in the outer sect so that he can be valued by the higher-ups of the sect. Fang Ji told himself over and over again that there was definitely something wrong with Pei Ling's performance. However, even if Pei Ling had learned the fire-receiving art previously, the calmness he displayed at this moment was enough to make him feel suffocated. If I don't offend this junior brother and protect him like Ouyang Xianqing, then what will I get in return once he grows up? But now, Fang Ji's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He even began to put the blame on Shuang, who he had a good relationship with. If not for Shuang repeatedly mentioning that the Branch Master was simply confused this time, and that Pei Ling was unworthy of the double mulberry faction paying such a huge price for him, I wouldn't have disliked Pei Ling from the beginning. I still have a chance. I still have a chance. Fang Ji wiped his cold sweat and suddenly thought, I'll expose senior brother Shui later and tell senior sister Ouyang and Pei Ling that I was deceived by senior brother Shui. This Pei Ling is only at the Qi refinement realm now. He still needs time to enter the inner sect. I'll take care of him in the future. I'll be able to turn hostility into friendship. Besides, I can ask the Branch Master to help plead with senior sister Ouyang. It won't be a problem. With this thought, he looked at Shuang, who was outside the array. Meanwhile, Shuang was cursing Jingshan in his heart. Why didn't you say so directly? If I had known that Branch Master would fight for the cold marrow fire, would have supported you. In the end, it's because the Branch Master doesn't trust me enough. Since that's the case, how can you blame me for siding with someone else? Why aren't Branch Master Miao's men here yet? Damn it, is this kid destined to rise up? Seeing how smoothly he absorbed the fire into his body, I'm afraid he'll be able to subdue the immortal fire in a while. Now that I'm controlled by the bone flower, I don't dare to leave secret tracks for Clear River faction. When the time comes, Ouyang Xianqing will leave with him. In the vast Gu abyss, if Clear River faction can't find him, won't he be able to escape and even soar into the sky? What should I do? Shuang was at his wit's end. He was shocked, angry, and jealous. He could only curse continuously, backlash. The immortal fire is quickly counter-attacking. Damn it, the cold marrow fire is considered a precious immortal fire among 8th-grade immortal fires. Why is it so useless? Even a kid at the chi refinement realm can refine it so easily. What an embarrassment. It deserves to be used by others the moment it's born. Pei Ling did not know what he was thinking. He was focused on the process of dual cultivation with Fairy Li. He thought about it over and over again because only then could he resist the pain of the cold marrow fire. But even so, his entire mind became dizzy and confused. And because of the system's control, he retained a trace of consciousness which kept him from fainting. At this moment, a cooling sensation suddenly came from the depths of his bone marrow. Chapter 76. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Arrival Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. This coolness was very faint at first. It was as if a cool breeze had brushed past his face in the heat, and then it was back to the heat waves. It was also as if he was standing still for a moment after a long journey to catch his breath before setting off again. The fact was that Pei Ling was in such extreme pain that he could not even sense it. But soon, the cool feeling began to spread. The others could see the azure halo slowly collapsing from Pei Ling's dantian after covering his body for a long time. When Ouyang Xianqing saw this, she became anxious again. He had already endured the most difficult and painful stage. The next step was to truly absorb the fire and completely refine the cold marrow fire into his body. Whether this mission would succeed or not, it was already at the final juncture. If he succeeded, everyone would be happy. If he failed, he would be reduced to ashes. Many cultivators who boasted that their Tao hearts were firm had fallen at the last moment. In short, the reward for absorbing fire into the body was extremely high, but it was also extremely risky. Until it was completely over, the outcome could not be determined. Fortunately, Pei Ling's expression was still calm. This made Ouyang Xianqing feel much less uneasy. Fang Ji had the same thought. He sighed in his heart and let go of his faint jealousy. He took a step forward and whispered to Ouyang Xianqing, "Don't worry, senior sister. I'll keep an eye on junior brother Pei's condition." "Shut up." Ouyang Xianqing frowned and scolded in a low voice, "Junior brother Pei has yet to finish refining the immortal fire. Don't disturb him." Fang Ji did not dare to be angry after being embarrassed. He smiled apologetically and said, "Yes, senior sister." Outside the array, Shuang was filled with jealousy and hatred. If not for the fact that he was restrained by the bone flower and could not move or even make a sound, he would have roared hysterically, "Why? Why? Why? I entered the sect at a young age and had a firm Tao heart. All these years, I'd been obsessed with cultivation. I'd never slacked off at all, but after reaching the foundation establishment realm, I hadn't improved at all. Not only did I see Jing Jingshan and the other juniors surpass me one after another, now Pei Ling is old enough to be my grandson. He's so talented. He was not born yet when I risked my life for the double mulberry faction. But now, with his natural talent, he's already superior to me when he has just entered the sect. Now, even absorbing fire into his body is smooth sailing. His future is limitless. The heavens are so unfair. I didn't mean to betray the double mulberry faction. It's just that I no longer held out hope for a long time. That's why I came up with this plan. Why did you let me come to this?" Shui Ying's eyes were bloodshot as he stared intently at the figure surrounded by an azure halo. He swore countless resentful oaths in his heart. If Pei Ling failed at this moment and turned to ashes on the spot, he would have no regrets even if he was enslaved by demons for life. However, no matter how angry and aggrieved Shuang felt, he could only watch as the halo on Pei Ling's body slowly extinguished at a calm and relaxed speed. Of course, he knew that this was not a failure. On the contrary, it was a sign that Pei Ling was about to completely refine the cold marrow fire and fuse it into his body. When all the azure light around Pei Ling's body was extinguished, he would look like an ordinary person. At that time, the cold marrow fire would become one with his body and increase his cultivation level. During this process, the characteristics of the innate immortal fire could burn the impurities in his body and cleanse his body. Moreover, due to the characteristics of the cold marrow fire, it could also give Pei Ling's bone marrow a special transformation, making him stronger than ordinary cultivators of the same level. With such a foundation, he would naturally be in the lead. Back then, Miao Qingyang and Jing Jingshan both had similar encounters. From there, they quickly rose up among the tens of thousands of outer sect disciples of the Deep Sea sect and obtained the opportunity to enter the inner sect. They even went on to become the inner sect masters. I can't accept this. Xuanying roared in his heart. He wished he could walk out of the bone flower immediately and change the illusion array to kill Pei Ling on the spot. Ha! Ouyang Xianqing sensed the abnormality in the bone flower and frowned slightly. She casually formed a hand seal, and the blood on her fingertips flashed and disappeared. At the same time, outside the array, Xuanying's eyes widened. Because his tongue and lips were sealed, he could not speak. There was only a purplish-black blood clot flowing down the white bone chain. On the armor formed by the bone flower, a white bone chain suddenly pierced through his chest. Ouyang Xianqing's cold voice sounded in Xuanying's ears. Behave yourself. Lowly servant, this lowly servant. Xuanying almost fainted from anger. He felt great hatred in his heart as he thought to himself, I say, this lowly servant usually looks noble and cold. Why is she protecting Pei Ling without a care this time? She must have secretly flirted with the branch master and found out about Pei Ling's background in advance. Therefore, along the way, she lets me and Fang Ji mock him and plan to secretly kill him, but she pretends to be a good person. Why isn't the Clear River faction here yet? Could it be that Branch Master Miao is afraid of core disciple Li, so he doesn't plan to send anyone over? At the thought of this possibility, Xuanying almost died on the spot. No, no, no. Although core disciple Li's status is high, core disciple Zhou is on the same level as her. Core disciple Zhou values Branch Master Miao. With core disciple Zhou's endorsement, Branch Master Miao has always doted on Miao Qingyan. How could he let go of this opportunity to avenge his younger brother? They must have been delayed. Yes, I didn't leave a trail since the Yin Yang Basin. They must be searching everywhere. They will definitely find me. Definitely. That was what he thought, but when he saw that more than half of the azure halo had been extinguished and there was no movement in the surroundings, Xuanying could not help but feel despair. Could it be that I'm down on my luck and I have no hope of achieving the great Tao? Otherwise, how could I have endured for so many years in the double mulberry faction, forsaking darkness for light, only to end up in this situation? In fact, Pei Ling's current situation was not easy. After the coolness in the depths of his bone marrow spread, the pain was indeed greatly reduced. Pei Ling secretly heaved a sigh of relief at first, thinking that he had finally survived that miserable experience. Unexpectedly, what followed was not pain, but a numbing itch that was even more unbearable than pain. The itch that came from his bones almost drove him crazy. If his body was under his control now, he would have long pulled out the life-extinguishing blade and stabbed it into his flesh, forcefully digging out all his bones. However, under the system's control, no matter how he screamed, wailed, and begged in his mind, the system was indifferent and focused on cultivating. As the numbness became more and more intense, the pores all over Pei Ling's body opened wide, and impurities that were like mud began to gush out. Ouyang Xianqing and Fang Ji hurriedly held their breaths. The entire trapping array was gradually filled with a stench. At the same time, Miao Qingyang, who did not find them in the secluded mushroom cave and insect mountain, stepped into the skeletal crane swamp. Not long after he entered the swamp, he keenly sensed the cold aura around him. It was much stronger than before. In the gray swamp, there were even some traces of frost and snow on the branches and leaves of moss and reeds. As expected, it's here. Miao Qingyang frowned for a moment and brushed off a blade of grass that he had picked up to take a closer look. He sneered and instantly increased his speed. Little bastard, just you wait. Not far from him, in the gray fog unique to the skeletal crane swamp, a pair of black eyes seemed to be deep in thought before disappearing quietly. Chapter 77. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Netherworld Coffin Girl Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. After an unknown period of time, Pei Ling felt that his throat was almost hoarse from shouting. Suddenly, all the numbness and pain disappeared. In its place was an unprecedented sense of ease. It was as if he was soaked in cool spring water. From head to toe, he felt refreshed after a long journey. Junior brother Pei is at the 6th level of Qi refinement. Not far away, Fang Ji saw it clearly and could not help but say in surprise, the cold marrow fire is indeed an 8th grade immortal fire. Ouyang Xianqing could not help but smile. However, at this moment, a blue light suddenly flashed around Pei Ling immediately, the azure halo that had just disappeared reappeared, but it was much fainter than before. After it appeared, it ignited Pei Ling's body without hesitation. Ouyang Xianqing subconsciously held her breath. This was the last step of the fire-receiving art. Under normal circumstances, this was the easiest step to pass. Some people even bypassed this level. This was because their absorption of fire into the body had completely ended, and the portion of the immortal fire that the body could not contain had dissipated. If a cultivator with a high cultivation level or a very strong body could completely devour the immortal fire, the absorption of fire into the body would end here. The problem was that Pei Ling's cultivation level was too low, and the quality of this cold marrow fire was too high. Even if Ouyang Xianqing weakened it again and again, with Pei Ling's 5th stage Qi refinement body, he was still far from being able to completely absorb it. As a result, there was more cold marrow fire left than expected. At this moment, it seeped out of Pei Ling's body and chose to burn his body. This was the fire source's final counterattack. If Pei Ling could not survive this, he would still be reduced to ashes. Ouyang Xianqing looked at her junior brother who was still unmoved by the flames and suppressed the admiration in her heart. Just as she was about to instruct Fang Ji to use a spell to treat him, a dream-like phantom flashed outside the array and instantly appeared beside Xueying. Branch Master Miao. Xueying could barely speak. From the corner of his eye, he saw that the person was tall and rough. He could not help but be overjoyed. He had hoped that the Clear River faction would send someone over. He did not expect Miao Qingyang to come personally. At this moment, Xueying cried tears of joy. However, after Miao Qingyang appeared, he did not pay attention to him immediately. Instead, he looked into the trapping array solemnly. Is the cold marrow fire really for this kid? Although Miao Qingyang knew from Xueying's letter that Jing Jingshan wanted to obtain the cold marrow fire for Pei Ling, in his opinion, it was very likely a ruse. Someone else should be the one to absorb the fire. After all, a cultivator at the 4th level of Qi refinement. No. Miao Qingyang's gaze froze as he stared at Pei Ling. Surprise flashed across his eyes. 6th level of Qi refinement. How could it be so fast? Who is it? At this moment, Ouyang Xianqing saw the figure beside Xueying in a flash. She could not help but be shocked. With a thought, the bone flower that was binding Xueying instantly fell and turned into a bone chain that wrapped around Miao Qingyang. Miao Qingyang came back to his senses and tilted his head slightly. A bloody light flashed in his eyes, and the originally aggressive white bone chain fell weakly as if it had been struck by lightning, instantly returning to Xueying's body. At the same time, in the trapping array, Ouyang Xianqing blacked out and spat out a mouthful of blood. Senior sister. Fang Ji's attention was on Pei Ling. Only then did he realize that something was wrong. He turned around and was shocked. Branch Master Meow. Branch Master Meow, as one of the dignified 13 inner sect branch masters, are you here to compete with us ordinary disciples for the cold marrow fire? After Ouyang Xianqing vomited blood, her originally pale face became more and more lifeless. She stuffed the bone dagger back into the black coffin, grabbed a few chains, and said in a low voice, "Isn't it a little despicable?" Then she quickly sent a voice transmission to Fang Ji. "I'll stop him later. Take junior brother Pei away." Fang Ji's eyes flickered, but he did not answer immediately. Ouyang Xianqing did not have the time to care about him at the moment. She looked at Miao Qingyang warily. The black coffin behind her trembled slightly, and the thing in the coffin seemed to be breaking out at any moment. Ouyang Xianqing. Miao Qingyang looked at her indifferently, but he did not have the intention to attack immediately. He said, "Your netherworld coffin girl has not been nurtured for 60 years. Once you use it, there will be an additional possibility of being replaced by your twin sister in the future. Do you really want to risk your life for an outer sect disciple who has just entered the sect?" "There's no need to say anything more, branch master." Ouyang Xianqing snorted coldly. With a rustling sound, the black coffin on her back flew out and landed heavily on the ground in front of her. Immediately, the corpse aura scattered, and countless chains surged out of the ground and surged wildly towards Miao Qingyang. "I, Ouyang Xianqing, will keep my word. I will not retreat even if I die." She actually took the initiative to attack with her mid-stage foundation establishment cultivation. As she attacked, she sent a voice transmission to Fang Ji again to urge him to leave quickly. Fang Ji's expression was conflicted. He looked at Pei Ling, who had been burned to a pulp by the immortal fire and was even emitting a charred smell, and then at the calm and powerful Miao Qingyang. His expression changed several times before he finally made up his mind. He suddenly raised his hand and shot out several golden needles. The tips were dark green, and it was obvious that they were poisoned. The golden needles went straight for Ouyang Xianqing's back. This change almost made Pei Ling's eyes pop out of his head. Even Shuang was stunned. Meanwhile, Ouyang Xianqing was suddenly attacked. Although she was shocked, she did not panic. The chains that grew from the flesh on her back suddenly shook like a peacock spreading its tail. They suddenly opened up behind her and struck down all the golden needles. Ouyang Xianqing turned her head and looked at Fang Ji coldly. She gritted her teeth and said, "Fang Ji. Senior sister, don't blame me." Fang Ji sneered slightly. There was no shame or guilt in his eyes as he said in a low voice, "The branch master is biased and senior sister is muddle-headed. I'm not muddle-headed. If it were anyone else from the Clear River faction who came, I wouldn't be here if senior sister was willing to risk your life. But it's actually Branch Master Miao. Even if Branch Master Zheng was here, he wouldn't be a match for him. It's human nature for me to abandon the dark and join the light." As he spoke, he walked quickly towards Pei Ling. "Branch Master Miao, your grudge against my faction's Branch Master has nothing to do with me. Your brother's death has nothing to do with me. Now that I'm handing Pei Ling to you, can you give me a way out?" Miao Qingyang was delighted. With his strength, Ouyang Xianqing, Fang Ji, and Shuang were not his match. There was no need to talk to these people. However, Miao Qingyang had died too miserably. Although Miao Qingyang had long decided to torture Pei Ling before he died, he hoped that he could experience being betrayed by these inner sect disciples sent by Jing Jingshan to protect him. He wanted Pei Ling to experience the feeling of being abandoned by everyone, followed by the suffering of all kinds of torture. At this moment, he could not help but clap and laugh. All right. Throw Pei Ling over and I'll let you go immediately." Fang Ji was overjoyed. He leaned over and extended his hand to Pei Ling. "Don't worry, Branch Master Miao." However, before he could finish his sentence, several chains suddenly shot out and stabbed towards his chest. If not for the fact that Fang Ji dodged quickly, he would have been pierced. Senior sister. He was shocked. Then his face darkened as he shouted, Senior sister, you're willing to fight to the death for the double mulberry faction, but why don't you give me a way out? Ouyang Xianqing ignored him. In the next moment, dozens of chains pierced through the ground and surrounded Pei Ling like a fence. Her attitude was obvious. When she still had the ability to fight, Fang Ji could forget about using Pei Ling as proof of allegiance. Fang Ji understood that this senior sister was stubborn and could not be convinced. A faint black aura appeared on his face, and his palms instantly turned black. Whether it was him or Shuang, they had followed Ouyang Xianqing for a long time. They had always been afraid of this senior sister and did not have the courage to fight her. However, with Miao Qingyang by his side, it gave him great encouragement. He immediately used the 5 poison palm to slap those chains. Kang. However, to Fang Ji's surprise, the chains did not react to his full-powered attack. As for poison, Ouyang Xianqing's situation was special. Although she was quite immune to poison, the toxicity of Fang Ji's cultivation did not affect her at all. Seeing this, cold sweat broke out on Fang Ji's forehead. Just as he was thinking of a countermeasure, Miao Qingyang was already too impatient to continue dawdling. With a casual punch, the trapping array shattered. Immediately, his entire body turned into a dream-like phantom that headed straight for Ouyang Xianqing. Shuang and Fang Ji could not help but look happy when they saw this. Chapter 78. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Pavilion Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. The ghostly escape technique was extremely fast. In an instant, Ouyang Xianqing's throat was inches away. Miao Qingyang did not have any tender feelings for the fairer sex. Just as he was about to kill her, the scene in front of him changed. He appeared in a dilapidated courtyard. The courtyard should have been lush with leaves, but now the plants were withered and the surroundings were dilapidated. There were occasional traces of broken walls in the dense fig vegetation. In the depths of the vegetation, there was a pavilion. There was a figure in the pavilion with his head lowered, doing something. Miao Qingyang looked around and realized that there was a courtyard door not far away. It was half-closed and there seemed to be some movement behind the door. Everything in sight was gray, as if there was a layer of grayish-white fog between them. He could not see far or clearly. Miao Qingyang felt a little dizzy after hesitating for a moment. He was shocked by the sudden change in the situation. However, as a branch master, although he was shocked, he did not panic. He quickly regained his composure and thought for a moment before quietly retreating towards the courtyard door. However, just as he reached the door, before he could reach out to push it open, he heard a commotion behind the door. It was the sound of some creature chewing something. A strong smell of blood wafted in. At the same time, a malicious gaze seemed to land on him through the door. Envy. The overwhelming pressure made Miao Qingyang's heart sink slightly, and he immediately retracted his hand. He stood there for a while, then quickly turned around and carefully touched the pavilion. After walking for a while on the ground, the distance between him and the pavilion did not seem to have changed. Moreover, no matter how Miao Qingyang changed directions, the person in the pavilion did not move. All he saw was a back view. After an unknown period of time, Miao Qingyang panted slightly and stopped. He stared at the back view with fear and asked in a low voice, "May I know which lady under core disciple Li has arrived?" Jiao and I. At this moment, in the skeletal crane swamp, Ouyang Xianqing's forehead was covered in sweat. She looked around warily for Miao Qingyang's appearance. Ghostly escape. In contrast to her vigilance as if she was facing a great enemy, Shuang and Fang Ji felt the pressure disappear at this moment. They were filled with joy. Shuang looked up and laughed, praising loudly, Branch Master Miao was indeed the #1 person in the outer sect back then. It's Clear River faction's fortune to have Branch Master Miao in charge. Now that the ghostly escape is complete, and once Branch Master has cultivated the 5 Ghosts Heavenly Network in the future, your future is limitless. The sky's the limit. Ouyang Xianqing, you don't know how to appreciate favors. You even dared to reject Branch Master Miao's personal recruitment. You're simply courting death. Feng Ji also smiled sinisterly and advised her hypocritically, "Senior sister, a good bird chooses a tree to perch on. Branch Master Miao has good intentions, so why are you so stubborn? Senior sister's potential is outstanding, and you have an advantage like the Netherworld Coffin Girl. In time, your future will be limitless. If you die here, it will be a pity." Ouyang Xianqing glanced at them disdainfully. The chains in her hand shook, and the corpse aura in the black coffin became even stronger. It was like thick smoke that quickly filled the surroundings. With Miao Qingyang watching from the side, Xueying and Feng Ji were not afraid at all. One in front of the other, they attacked Ouyang Xianqing together. Feng Ji was especially sinister. He kept attacking Pei Ling, who was protected by the chains, and attracted Ouyang Xianqing's attention. "You dare to betray the Branch Master. In the future, when the Branch Master reports to Core Disciple Li, she will be furious. Do you really think that the Clear River faction can protect you?" Ouyang Xianqing was not afraid of fighting against 2 people by herself. However, at this moment, she had to protect Pei Ling and guard against Miao Qingyang. For a moment, she was a little flustered. Finally, she said angrily, "How can a traitor who is afraid of death end up well?" Feng Ji said disapprovingly, "Senior sister is being stubborn. What right do you have to ask us to live and die with the Double Mulberry faction? Besides, with Core Disciple Li's status, why would she care about such a small matter? Not to mention that you and I are just ants in her eyes." Even if Xing Jingshan claims to have a close relationship with Core Disciple Li, he was beaten black and blue by Branch Master Miao in the outer sect many times back then. When did Core Disciple Li ever help him? And senior sister, have you forgotten? Xueying added with a cold smile, the Holy Sect doesn't only have one core disciple. Xing Jingshan has Core Disciple Li behind him, and Clear River faction has Core Disciple Zhou's support. As they spoke, the 3 of them exchanged blows several times. Ouyang Xianqing's body became more and more lifeless. She looked like a living corpse that could move, and the chains that suddenly shot up from the ground covered the sky. Xueying's strength was inferior to Feng Ji's. After suffering a few losses in a row, he saw that Miao Qingyang had not appeared. He had thought highly of Ouyang Xianqing's strength and wanted to give her a chance. Now he could not help but shout, "Branch Master Miao, please take down this lowly servant quickly. This lowly servant's personality is different from ordinary people. She has always kept her promises and would rather die than change them. That's why Xing Jingshan entrusted Pei Ling to her. I'm afraid that Branch Master's good intentions have been treated as ill intentions." With that, the grayish-white fog in front of Miao Qingyang instantly dissipated. He was slightly dazed, but he realized that he was sitting in the pavilion. Opposite him was a translucent woman in a palace dress. She wore her hair up, and she had a crown of flowers on her head. She looked like a refined lady in a large mansion. However, if one looked carefully, below her knees, she did not have physical legs. There was only a ball of black fog that did not dissipate. At this moment, she was slowly putting down the embroidery in her hand. In her slender and pale hand was an embroidered taut made from human skin. An image of a hungry ghost under the moon was half embroidered. The threads through the bone needles were actually made from souls, which emitted a faint, mournful wail. Jiao and I stopped embroidering for the time being and looked at Miao Qingyang with her dark eyes. Miao Qingyang felt a chill run down his spine and could not help but shiver. "Please." With a soft sound, a bowl of tea suddenly appeared in front of him. The tea was so dark that the bottom of the bowl could not be seen. It was cold to the touch and a small patch of frost appeared around the bowl on the moss-covered stone table. Something seemed to be swimming quickly inside the bowl, causing ripples on the surface of the tea. How would Miao Qingyang dare to touch it? He lowered his head slightly and asked in a low voice, "May I ask if Core Disciple Li has any instructions? Or do you have any? Damn it! Why would a ghost maid appear here?" Miao Qingyang was frightened and puzzled. Last time, when he attacked the small courtyard of Kalan, he beat up Jing Jingshan in front of the disciples of the Double Mulberry faction and left without a word. He did not encounter any ghost servant attacks. Why is she here now? It couldn't be that she suddenly thought of standing up for Jing Jingshan after so many days. Could it be for the cold marrow fire? No, that is unlikely. What kind of status and cultivation does Core Disciple Li have? A mere cold marrow fire is useless to her and her personal attendant. Then what is it for? Don't touch Pei Ling. Just as Miao Qingyang's mind was racing and he was racking his brains to guess, Jiao Enai began to embroider again. With every stitch, a fresh smear of blood would gush out of the human skin, as if the owner of the skin was still alive. At the same time, wails could be heard from the human skin. The wails sounded, one after another, but it was not just one person. Sometimes it was a young woman, sometimes a child, sometimes an old man, and sometimes a young man. All of them were filled with extreme pain and despair. Jiao Enai did not care at all. She did not stop and said calmly, "Remember this. You can leave now." As she spoke, a passageway silently opened outside the pavilion. As expected, the outside of the passageway was not dilapidated, but it was not the skeletal crane swamp. Chapter 79. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I have Special Escape Skills Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios Pei Ling. She's actually here for Pei Ling. Miao Qingyang was shocked. No wonder Jing Jingshan would help Pei Ling obtain the cold marrow fire at all costs. It was no wonder that Pei Ling, who came from a humble background and did not have a high cultivation level, could kill his younger brother, Li Siguang, and Zhou Yi. It turned out that this little bastard's backer was not Jing Jingshan, but Core Disciple Li. Realizing this, Miao Qingyang's Dao heart almost collapsed instantly. If the person who instructed Pei Ling was Jing Jingshan, he might still have a chance to avenge his brother at all costs. But if it was Core Disciple Li, what could he do? Even if he did not care, he could not even deal with any of the ghost maids under Core Disciple Li. A tidal wave of emotions hit Miao Qingyang, and his expression changed drastically. Jiao Enai did not care at all. She continued embroidering the picture of a hungry ghost under the moon. Clearly, she was not worried that he would reject her. Being calm after a moment, Miao Qingyang finally stood up, but he did not leave. Instead, he looked straight at Jiao Enai and said in a low voice, "Miss Jiao Enai, what if I insist on killing Pei Ling?" Jiao Enai raised her head when she heard this. There was no emotion in her black eyes, but the flower crown on her head suddenly fell off, and her fine black hair silently expanded. At this moment, in the narrow space surrounded by black chains in the skeletal crane swamp, the blue flames were still burning slowly and steadily. Pei Ling was burning with anxiety. "System, can you go faster?" He was in great pain at the moment. After all, the remaining cold marrow fire was burning his body. However, the situation was critical, and Pei Ling couldn't care less about this. He urged the system anxiously, "Quick. Finish quickly. I'll give you a 5-star rating. In the future, I'll give you 5-star ratings." Just like every cultivation session in the past, the system remained indifferent and allowed the cold marrow fire to burn his body. It only cared about directing the fire source in his body to slowly flow along his bone marrow and meridians and preventing his body from being burned to keep the host alive. F***ck, thought Pei Ling. He knew that he could not count on this retard to focus on the outside world. Amidst the layers of chains, a scream suddenly sounded. Through the gap, he saw Shui Ying's shocked expression. Half of his body was bleeding as he held his arm and retreated quickly. As an array cultivator, he was not good at close combat. However, Ouyang Xianqing was controlling the intrinsic array disc. He had also been tortured by the bone flower previously. At this moment, his vitality was severely injured and he had lost his main cultivation method. He had lost 80% of his strength. Even with Fang Ji's help, he quickly fell into a disadvantage. However, Fang Ji was not doing well either. He had already taken out his trump card. A three-legged bronze incense burner engraved with auspicious cloud patterns. Green smoke billowed from the burner. Wherever it went, the vegetation instantly withered. Even the swamp quickly showed signs of burning. It was obvious how toxic it was. However, Ouyang Xianqing shouted in a low voice. The chains on her back twitched like a living thing, and the green smoke that was surging from the incense burner was completely absorbed into the black coffin. There was no more movement. Branch Master Miao. Miao Qingyang did not appear for a long time. Even if he was a cat playing with a mouse, it was a little unreasonable. Shuang and Fang Ji realized that something was wrong, and their expressions changed. Ignore her. Go and capture Pei Ling. The two of them looked at each other. Shuang reminded Fang Ji in a low voice, quick. As he spoke, he endured the pain and reached into his pocket. He took out a black array flag and threw it into the air. It instantly turned into a formation that surrounded Ouyang Xianqing and the black coffin. Ouyang Xianqing was furious. Her 10 fingernails suddenly extended, and the array flags tottered and collapsed. Quick, catch Pei Ling. Shuang slapped his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood essence onto the array flag. The array flag was covered in a faint blood-colored light and stabilized a little. He said anxiously, this blood-binding array can't stop her for long. Only by capturing Pei Ling can we survive. There was no need for Shuang to remind him of this. Fang Ji had already picked up the incense burner and cut his wrists, dripping blood into it. At the same time, he took out a bronze dagger from his sleeve and pressed it against the space between his eyebrows. It slowly slid down. There was no blood at the tip of the dagger, but a white and fat worm that looked like a spring silkworm wriggled out, bit by bit. After Fang Ji took it out, he threw it into the incense burner. After a while, a sharp cry sounded from the furnace, and a ghost-faced locust the size of a baby's head flew out from the green smoke. This locust's eyes were red, and it exuded a ferocious aura. However, this ferocious aura was like water without a source, exposing its weakness. Fang Ji looked at it with heartache. He had painstakingly nurtured this spectral locust. He had originally hoped that it would grow to become a spectral locust king and be of great help to him. It was also his last crutch. However, the situation was urgent now, and he couldn't care less about nurturing its growth. Under his command, the spectral locust left the incense burner and pounced on Pei Ling aggressively. Ouyang Xianqing's coffin was trapped by the blood-binding array. Although she attacked the array formation crazily, Shuang and Fang Ji were prepared to risk their lives and did not care about their blood essence. It was actually difficult for her to break through for the time being. She could only command the chains that had been protecting Pei Ling to face the enemy through the array formation. Unexpectedly, when the spectral locust saw the chains coming at it, it did not dodge at all. Its entire body floated like smoke for a moment before turning into a ghost. The chains cut through its body without any obstruction, but they could not stop its movement at all. How dare you! Since the chains were useless, the spectral locust charged right in, heading straight for Pei Ling. In the blood-binding array, Ouyang Xianqing was furious. She tore open all the chain talismans on the black coffin without hesitation. The sounds of slapping coming from the black coffin fell into a dead silence. However, after only 2 breaths, the heavy coffin lid flew out and smashed heavily onto an array flag. Xueying, who was still nourishing the array flag with his blood essence and continuing to maintain the array formation, felt his soul tremble. Stars flashed in front of his eyes, and he felt a sweetness in his throat. He spat out a large mouthful of blood and his body flew out heavily. He struggled for a while but could not get up. He did not know if he was dead or alive. Feng Ji was scared out of his wits when he saw this. He urged the spectral locust to take Pei Ling as a hostage as soon as possible. However, at this moment, Pei Ling, who was charred black and even smoking, suddenly turned his head. The system was still ringing in his ears. This cultivation session is over. Thank you for using the smart cultivation system. You have ascended without a worry with a single click. I look forward to you sharing your cultivation evaluation. If you are satisfied, please give me a 5-star rating. Pei Ling could not be bothered. He rolled on the ground to avoid the attack of the spectral locust's forelimbs. Then, he endured the pain and pulled out the life extinguishing blade from his back. However, as soon as he held the life extinguishing blade, it fell. Pei Ling was shocked. When he took a closer look, he realized that the fingers on his right hand were badly burned and he could not grab the saber hilt at all. System. He thought quickly and shouted in his mind, I want to cultivate the blood malevolent saber art. The next moment, the system went online again. His body quickly picked up the life extinguishing blade that had not completely fallen into the swamp and rushed towards Xueying at an extremely fast speed, leaving the spectral locust far behind him. Ding dong. Blood essence of a cultivator lacking. Ding dong, searching for the blood essence of a cultivator. Ding dong, the system will give 3 foundation establishment cultivators for free. In almost an instant, Pei Ling appeared beside Xueying. The life extinguishing blade was fast as lightning as it slashed across his neck, leaving a trail of blood behind. It only appeared in midair for a moment before it was absorbed by the blood mist around Pei Ling. Xueying, who was on the ground, did not even have the time to grunt before he turned into a corpse. The ground of the skeletal crane swamp shook slightly before the corpse shattered into powder which fused into the mud of the swamp. In the blood mist, Xueying's face was filled with disbelief. System. Ding dong, the first foundation establishment cultivator has been gifted. Cultivation continues. Chapter 80. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ouyang Xianmeng Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. The blood essence of a foundation establishment cultivator was far from what a Qi refinement cultivator could compare to. Even though Xueying had frequently used his blood essence to stabilize the array formation and had consumed a lot of energy, the remaining blood essence and the physical body and soul of a foundation establishment cultivator still caused the blood mist to flourish as if it was corporeal. This sudden change caught Ouyang Xianqing and Feng Ji off guard. Pei Ling stepped on Xueying's remaining ashes and turned around abruptly. There was no expression on his charred face. The cold marrow fire in his eyes, which had yet to be completely restrained, was suffused with a faint blue glow. He looked like a malicious spirit. He raised his saber silently and rushed towards Feng Ji without hiding his purpose. Feng Ji was terrified. Pei Ling was clearly only a Qi refinement stage cultivator. Although he was no match for Ouyang Xianqing, he was still an upright foundation establishment stage cultivator. However, at this moment, he subconsciously turned around and ran. He even multitasked and ordered the spectral locust to cover his retreat. The spectral locust let out a sorrowful cry as it switched out of its ghost form to meet Pei Ling's blade. Clang! The worm's steel-like forelimbs collided with the life-extinguishing blade. The huge impact of the collision threw Pei Ling to the ground. At the same time, the system fled instantly. Ding dong! External attacks detected. This cultivation session is over. Thank you for using the smart cultivation system. You have ascended without a worry with a single click. I look forward to you sharing your cultivation evaluation. If you are satisfied, please give me a 5-star rating. The control of his own body returned to Pei Ling. At this moment, his qi and blood were rapidly recovering, but his fingers still could not hold the life. Extinguishing blade. With 2 thuds, the blade fell, splashing mud about in the swamp. Junior brother Pei. Ouyang Xianqing's eyes widened in anger. She did not hold back anymore. She waved her hand and threw a chain at the spectral locust that wanted to chase after her. The white cloth wrapped around her hair fluttered without any wind. Dense talismans instantly appeared on the originally pure white cloth. The next moment, a petite figure flew out of the coffin. She was about 6 or 7 years old, and her appearance was incomparably exquisite, as if she was carefully conjured by a famous artist. Her eyelashes were especially thick and long, like a feathered fan. Against her bloodless skin, they made her look even paler. One could even see the light green veins under her skin. The girl closed her eyes tightly and pursed her lips slightly as she floated in the air quietly. She was naked, but there were countless bone flowers surrounding her. The translucent grayish-white flowers bloomed crazily, covering her body below the collarbone. If not for the many bone chains that intertwined and quickly swam through the flowers like pythons, emitting bone-chilling sounds, she would have looked like a fairy among the flowers, pure and beautiful. The moment he saw this girl, Fang Ji was so frightened that he wanted to die. He activated the blood transformation art without hesitation and fled in a frenzy. The girl did not open her eyes, but a white bone chain behind her suddenly entered a void and disappeared. Without any warning, Fang Ji's back bled. Immediately after, he staggered a few steps as if he had been frozen and became motionless. Immediately after, countless white bone chains surged from his chest, piercing through his body. A huge bone flower slowly bloomed behind him. The spectral locust that was connected to his life let out a sharp cry and instantly turned to ashes. Junior brother Pei, are you all right? Ouyang Xianqing did not have the time to care about Fang Ji. She ran to Pei Ling's side and helped him up. She asked anxiously, Junior brother. Junior brother. Before she could finish her sentence, her palm touched the side of Pei Ling's neck, and a large piece of charred flesh fell off, startling her. Fortunately, she realized that there was already new flesh and blood recovering rapidly in the place where it had fallen off. Blood Malevolent Saber Art. As an inner sect disciple, Ouyang Xianqing's wide knowledge was naturally not something that Chen Huan and the other outer sect disciples could compare to. She immediately recognized it. Although this saber art is an offensive technique that refines others into demons, it can absorb the blood essence of others for one's own recovery. Great, Junior brother Pei's life is not in danger. Ouyang Xianqing heaved a sigh of relief. She knew that Pei Ling needed to focus on recovering at the moment. She carefully laid him down, turned around, and went after Fang Ji at a distance. A huge bone flower wrapped around Fang Ji's body and flew across the distance between the two of them, landing not far from Pei Ling. Ouyang Xianqing said, Junior brother, absorbing Shui Ying's essence for your recovery is too slow. Hurry up and refine Fang Ji into a demon since he has just died. At this moment, Pei Ling was exhausted, as his entire body was recovering rapidly. It was painful, numb and itchy, as if thousands of insects were biting him. If not for the fact that this feeling was much easier than the process of absorbing fire into his body, he would have rolled on the ground and cried out in pain. Therefore, although he knew that Fang Ji was already dead, he was too preoccupied to care. He could not help but open his eyes and look at Ouyang Xianqing gratefully. Thank you, senior sister. This senior sister is too good. Senior sister Ouyang is beautiful and kind. As he thought about this, he did not dare to attack immediately. After all, the retarded system had given him 3 foundation establishment cultivators. As expected, Ouyang Xianqing was also within the system's gift range. Fortunately, he was interrupted by the spectral locust midway. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. So Pei Ling picked up a stone and estimated the time he would need. He injected his spiritual power and threw the stone high into the air. At the same time, he instructed the system in his mind without hesitation. System, I want to continue cultivating the blood malevolent saber art. As expected, the system immediately controlled his body, grabbed the life extinguishing blade, stood up, and slashed at Fang Ji. However, wherever the life extinguishing blade passed, the bone flower wrapped itself around Fang Ji and retreated. The system missed. Without any hesitation, his system-controlled body stepped forward and continued to slash at Fang Ji's neck. At this moment, the stone fell and hit him. System. Ding, dong, external attacks detected. This cultivation session is over. Pei Ling was speechless. Ouyang Xianmeng, what are you doing? Pei Ling did not understand. Just as he was about to ask Ouyang Xianqing, he saw this senior sister's expression darkening. She turned to the girl in the air and shouted, I don't need you now. Put down Fang Ji and return to the netherworld coffin. Pei Ling was shocked when he heard this. Suddenly, he heard the crisp laughter of a girl. He. He immediately felt dizzy, and his gaze gradually became unfocused. Ouyang Xianqing was furious. The black armor on her fingertips grew longer as she slashed fiercely in the air. 5 claws like those of a giant beast shot out. Swoosh! 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 The pale face of the girl surrounded by the bone flower was instantly covered in wounds. What flowed out of the wounds was not blood, but extremely sticky black stains. The girl did not resist, nor did she open her eyes. She only strangely turned her neck to an impossible angle and stared at Ouyang Xianqing for a moment. Her pale lips curled up into a strange and crazy smile. Then, she suddenly fell back and fell straight down. The black coffin that was originally thrown to the side flew up silently and caught it in midair. The coffin lid flew over automatically and closed with a clang. Ouyang Xianqing immediately rushed over and put back all the chains and talismans from before. Even so, she did not look too good. She held on to the black coffin and panted for a while before turning around. Pei Ling grabbed another stone and threw it high up into the air. Then he slashed at Fang Ji, who was no longer controlled by the bone flower. After the blood mist around him churned for a while, countless charred flesh fell off, revealing fair new skin underneath. At this moment, the stone landed on Pei Ling's shoulder. This junior brother seemed to be stunned for a moment before slowly putting away his saber. Ouyang Xianqing looked at him in surprise, not understanding what he meant by smashing himself with a stone. However, now was not the time to be curious. She quickly packed up the belongings of Xueying and Fang Ji. Then she carried the black coffin on her back and walked over to crush Fang Ji's dried corpse into dust. She said in a low voice, Junior brother, can you leave? If you can, let's leave this place quickly. Although I don't know what happened to Miao Qingyang, the branch master of Bright River faction is definitely not someone we can resist. Pei Ling thought so too. Although the numbness and itchiness in his body were uncomfortable, he couldn't care less. Senior sister, I can leave. Let's leave now. Ouyang Xianqing was very familiar with this place. After confirming the direction, she led him out of the swamp in a hurry. Let's head towards the secluded mushroom cave first. After leaving the skeletal crane swamp, Ouyang Xianqing pointed in a direction and told Pei Ling, there's. Her voice trailed off. Pei Ling subconsciously looked at her, only to see Ouyang Xianqing stop abruptly and slowly raise her head. Under the white cloth, her face had changed to Ouyang Xianmeng's face. She gave him a strange smile. In the next moment, countless white bone chains whizzed out.